Okay, so I think now I have audio back. So this should be coming through. So I have no idea how. I don't know if I can really continue that talk. I'll try to maybe make an edited video or something. Um, but I don't know how I'm going to make this at all worthwhile content. Uh, the only thing I can think of is just basically to turn this into a question and answer session from here on out and answer the super chats and do as good a job as possible doing those, and then take my notes for the talk I was planning to do for the first part of last video and make an edited video out of it if that's at all possible. Yeah, I'm really feeling embarrassed right now, so yeah, I really apologize for that. I don't know, my computer just stopped working flat out, and because I didn't have the chat up on OBS, I wasn't able to actually see what was going on. I wonder why entropy is not loading properly, but at any rate, we'll just keep on going for what it is. We'll see if we can bring the super chats up, and I guess I'll have to do this through Google this time. Yeah, I have no, I can't possibly continue the talk that I was going to give because I'm too confused about where I left off and where I started, and even if I did continue the talk I was going to give, I couldn't. Half of it would be in one video and half of it would be in the other one. That would make no sense. But you don't need to. You don't need to. Thanks. So I guess I'll just answer questions on the super chat, and this will be a. I'll do a distance stream tomorrow or something. I yeah, I have no idea how I'm going to do any of this now. Um, God, good Lord. Good Lord. See if I can get this. See if I can get this back up. All right, so I guess for the remainder of this time, I'm going to basically just answer questions for the next hour and a half, and I don't know. I'll probably unlist the original video and then just call this an impromptu question answering stream, so that people aren't going to click on it. I'll just try to do a proper distance stream some other time in this week, so that I can actually try to get an idea out. I don't feel it's worth it. I don't feel it's fair to title it like that, or to try to I don't know. I like to think that I have a certain quality standard for some of these things, and when I have a big technical mishap like that, I'm not exactly sure how to proceed. Any way I cut this, I feel like I'm kind of ripping off the audience for one thing or the other, and I really really dislike that. I don't like having low quality videos up on my channel that have huge errors in them, and I don't like having I don't like having people give super chat and not have that go into a video that's part of the channel that has super chat actually in the stream. So I'm really reluctant on how to solve this. All I can say is perhaps I'll answer everyone's questions that super chatted me the first time. I'll try to answer them again going forward, and we can have a conversation tonight. But I don't know. People can tell me what they think. I could just answer questions from the chat, and then I could answer the super chats on the next distance. That might be the most fair thing to do. And then I can try to just redo this another night when I have more time to roll out a thesis. And then I can just chat with the chat for the next hour. Just don't give me super chats. Just don't give me super chats. I'll read all the super chats at the next distance that maybe we'll do on Thursday, I guess. Thursday sounds good. And then for the next hour, I'll just answer questions for free. just as a sorry for having this happen. Um, yeah, I mean, you can watch the first half. I mean, there's no way that I can figure out where in my notes I am with that much of a disruption in my actual feed. So I can't turn this into an actual talk. I'm just gonna completely. This is part of the things. I just have to take everything I've been doing on YouTube, completely throw it in the trash, and start completely over again. Whatever software setup I'm using for this thing is trash. I can't count on it. I have no. Is it Linux that's doing this to me? I think it might be the OBS Linux version. I have no idea. Just ask questions on the chat and I'll answer them. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll answer super chats right now. I'll answer. Well, then I have to answer them again on Thursday. Yeah, I don't feel this is not fair. This is just not fair for me to answer people who paid good money in this thing. Just reply me, and I'll answer questions, and we can talk about it. Somebody in the reply. Somebody in the. I guess this will just have to change the dynamics. I'll just turn this into an hour answering questions with the distributist. That's the new title of this stream. I'll leave it up until Thursday. I'll leave the first one up until Thursday, and we'll redo the entire thing on Thursday, and that will be it. And until then, we'll just chat together. Someone asked me a question in the chat. I saw this before. I kind of was looking at this. Is the problem with looking off your notes. Is that when you're reading your notes or your PowerPoint, I have very minimalistic notes. But you're not looking at the chat. So people say FFF. You don't really you don't realize that your OBS completely crashed. Someone's asked, do you think St. Thomas Aquinas would approve of 1776, the musical or the Declaration of Independence? In both cases, I think no, because I think the musical. Well, I haven't really seen the musical. I've just heard the music in the musical, or I've heard a few songs off it, and I wasn't too impressed. I like to think that Thomas Aquinas had more discerning tastes in music than 1776, or at least in terms of musicals. And I don't even like a lot of musicals. I actually, yeah, I don't know. For musicals, I would say for musicals, Les Miserables is simultaneously both based and cringe. But I don't feel like you can be a person with a soul and still not have your heartstrings tugged a little bit by Les Mis. So there is a special place in my heart for Les Miserables as a musical. But that being said, the best musical of all time, as far for my money, is My Fair Lady, and that's not an original choice. I know that's common wisdom. If you were to go for the best musical of the 20th century, it probably would be Les Miserables. As for the Declaration of Independence of 1776, I think Thomas Aquinas would have some serious problems. Well, yeah, I mean, like, why do the people have a right to select their government? It seems like Thomas Aquinas probably would ask, why could the people select an ungodly government? I think Thomas Aquinas would ask a lot of the questions that kind of got swept under the rug by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence. He would ask, could the people elect an ungodly government? There's no provision in this statement about how a democratic people might become immoral, or how governments might be dissolved for imprudent reasons or for ungodly reasons, so on and so on and so forth. I don't think he would approve of either the musical or the the musical or the letter to the king that was written in 1776. Someone's asking me to continue the talk. Look, I'll give you a version of it on Thursday. there's no way I can make it good enough to keep on the channel permanently and not feel like I'm just putting crap content on my channel. This time is just for the live viewers. Don't super. I mean, you can super chat me if you want to, but I'm going to read the super chats on Thursday. It's only fair to super chatters, in my opinion, if the super chat is on a video that stays up on my channel for at least a year. So if I continue on with my spiel, first of all, it's going to be way disjointed because it's going to be across 2 videos. And even if I finish it, I'm not going to have enough time for the super chats. So I'll be ripping them off. So it's just not worth it. I want to give you guys quality, and most people watch this after the fact because I broadcast for what most people is ungodly hour. So I really apologize. Just reply me. Has extending the adolescence into early adulthood been a bad effect on developing virtuous people? Do teenagers need to die? Well, I mean, teenagers need to have some kind of coming of age. This is obviously a problem with, more with men than with women. Women can have much more, women need to have virtuous men to be around to drive them, and they need to have good instruction and guidance. But men really need to have challenges that they can overcome to prove themselves as men. A lot of men, myself included, for me, in high school, I had kind of this situation where I was an unpopular kid, and then I kind of got a little more popular in my last year. But still, by the time I went into college, I just did not have enough self-confidence. I hadn't really been tested in any real way. I had played 1 year of sports. I'd played on a sports team for 1 year on the tennis team. I had a lot of little things like debate I was into, a lot of clubs I was into, but I had nothing really that I felt like I had achieved. And so I went into college, and the way you approach college, and the way you approach your life in your 20s, is you need to have a certain amount of risk non-aversion. And the problem with myself is that I was a very, very risk-averse 20-year-old. And I see these Zoomers and these younger millennials, and I just think, man, you just don't have the right attitude towards life. You're first of all, you don't have any meaningful values. You have no identity. You're living a bugman lifestyle. And then on top of that, you're just way too risk averse. You're trying to satisfy people. You're trying to satisfy institutions and try to prove that you're a good person. Where once you have your identity and principles set in your 20s, your attitude should be, as long as I live up to my identity and principles, I shouldn't give an F about what anyone thinks. Certainly that was cultivated better in the past. Okay, what's your thoughts on Nick Fuentes? I get this question asked every single time. Me and Nick have big personal disagreements. I think Nick is a very polarizing figure. He's incredibly talented as a speaker, and he's incredibly talented as an organizer. But I hate to say it, being talented as an organizer is like being talented as a lancer after the Battle of Agincourt, or it's like being talented as a cavalryman after World War One. The right wing is unable to organize, and it's not because of lack of talented organizers. The right wing can't organize because it can't get a group of people into a room without the left canceling every one of the funders. So I really appreciate Nick's contribution to groyping. I think that was an artistic statement that will live on and on and on. But his idea of creating like some kind of America First activist organization, combined with the fact that I really don't like his style very much. I respect the man, but we're just not on the same page, either with our approach to aesthetics or with our approach to political strategy. Does BreadTube have a significant effect on youth today? And yes and no. What BreadTube does is a giant stopgap. So if you're a young white or Asian man, and it's usually white or Asian men in the West today, you're intelligent, you're high achieving, you get a strain, and let's say that you're not like an elite, right? Like, so some white and Asian men are just groomed to be the next generation of CEOs and hotshots, right? They've got Ivy League educations. Their life is good with the establishment. But if you're in that sort of like middle ground or upper middle, you get the vague idea that society is not set up for you, and that a lot of institutions are being set up and being controlled in a way that's directly against your interests as an actor. And because of that, you're going to look around for answers. BreadTube stands in the way of that. It essentially blocks people from adopting genuinely dissident views, and essentially gets people back on the message of Jon Stewart and the rest of the neoliberal or neo-Marxist progressives. I know neoliberal progressives and neo-Marxist progressives are two different varieties, but in my mind, they're more alike than they are different when you really burrow down on the whole endeavor. So, yeah, I mean, BreadTube is a problem, not because it actually influences politics, but because it actually compromises the core demo that any kind of real dissident voice should be going after. And I'm not saying don't being a socialist, don't be radical. No, someone give me a super chat. I'm not saying don't be radical in your economic outlook. Go ahead, be radical in your economic outlook. Decry capitalism, whatever that means. I would really ask that if you're going to decry capitalism, a phenomenon that existed between the 17th and 18th centuries that emerged then, right? Don't tell me that capitalism is responsible for things that I know to be a reality before then, and if you're going to blame things that happened in the last 20 years on capitalism, I'm going to need a better explanation than capitalism did it. Okay, but if you're into that, if your radical economics is your jam, go for it. But radical economics is your jam, and then I'm going to be an intersectional person who supports the cultural establishment and the academy in all ways that matter. And then I'm going to have some kind of like pet anarchist theory that obviously is a LARP. That's not distance. That's an entertainment product. And this is, I think that, this is, I was saying part of my speech about the left kind of destroying itself and not destroying itself, admitting that they're frauds. Peter Coffin did this too. Peter Coffin is a total POS in my honest opinion. But always there's this pretense that the people who watch him think that like he's onto something. It was obvious to everyone that Peter Coffin is a complete entertainer. I wouldn't say grifter, but he's basically an entertainer. He was a nerd. He was a nerd culture guy prior to 2014. He was doing that thing, and you can see his BioShock Infinite rap, which is so thoroughly 2013. Anytime after 2013, it's immediately cringe. And then he became a Marxist revolutionary in 2017, and that's his grift now. And but the thing is that he had this podcast where he's like, "Hey guys, what I do, it's just entertainment. Nothing we do here is going to actually implement the revolution. It's all right." And he did this joke. He did this joke with his female colleague, where they do this ASMR. It's all right. Podcasts you listen to aren't going to implement the revolution. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, Peter Coffin. But if you recall, your complaint against the right wing, against Jordan Peterson, and against Gamergate, was that their revolution, their counter-establishment attitude was fake because it wasn't going to unseat capitalism. That was how you hid your own sycophancy to the current ruling class, is that by saying that they weren't radical enough because they weren't dismantling capitalism. So now Joe Biden's president, and you're saying that, oh, it's just a joke, we're not actually dismantling capitalism. Oh, and no one saw that one coming, right? Okay, well, whatever. Thoughts on the California recall election? Total mirage. Don't pay any attention to it. The California recall election will go back to the California voters, which are so thoroughly away from doing anything interesting or radical. What are you expecting? Arnold Schwarzenegger again? And even if you got Arnold Schwarzenegger again, would that actually mean anything? The guy was basically a conservative Democrat with a new veneer on top of him, where essentially the California Democrats could, for at least 10 more years, write off all of their state's fiscal issues and blame it on a Republican who didn't even really govern as a Republican. So, I don't know. There you go. Society Man, I'll read your name out because, friend of the channel. Do you think that there is any chance any other countries overtaking America in film now that Hollywood has fallen, as someone put it? Hollywood has turned now into a Hutu power after school special. Yeah, I remember Curtis saying that. Well, I mean, I guess what I've seen in Korean cinema is really promising. It looks like they're actually making movies that have that talk about humanity as it exists, as opposed to race opera shit or Marvel movies. I mean, it's amazing. It seems like they're actually making movies for adults. I don't know. I mean, Society Man. The problem is Hollywood. And of all people, and actually I'm not against this person, I actually quite like him. The person who first realized the problem of Hollywood is Ross Douthat. The problem with Marvel movies is not that they're bad per se. If they were, I mean, anyone who lived through the 90s, and I know I'm really dating myself, everyone who lived through the 90s will know that between Jurassic Park and The Matrix, those are the two bookends. But in that period, I think it was like 1993 and 1999, yeah, there was just the worst shit blockbusters that had ever passed a blockbuster. Hollywood just spewed out derivative, poorly written shit, and people lined up and bought tickets anyway. It was terrible. They were poorly written. They were poorly acted. It was just bad. Bad. And then the 1999 movies got better. The problem with the Avengers is they're not bad movies. By the standards of the late 90s, they're actually good movies. The problem with the Avengers movies is that they're clearly made by talented people who are using their talents to think of original ways to retcon 3,200 superheroes living in the same extended universe, when they should be thinking of new stories and new aesthetic visions and new ways, new dynamics that we can be exploring in storytelling. The human race isn't out of stories. That's ridiculous. The human race isn't out of human interactions. We might be out of politically convenient stories. I think we're out of politically convenient stories, but we're not out of stories. I see people super chatting me. I will do the super chats on Thursday. I don't know. Watch my calendar if I can do it on Thursday. I will do the super chats on the actual Distant stream. I promise. But I'll try to answer until the clock strikes 12. I will answer as many replies as possible. Obviously I can't answer all of them, so I'll be somewhat selective. So I think, again, the problem with Hollywood at this stage, it's a talent black hole. And if you're a talented Korean filmmaker, going to UCLA or USC and then getting a job in Hollywood is probably a better career path than to trying something original in Korea. Curtis Yarvin published an article yesterday on right-wing punditry being bunk. Can each generation of right-wingers reconcile their previous iteration, or are we all doomed to slogans? Well, I mean, I think that the post-war conservative movement. I mean, okay, so we have to delineate here, and this is for people who haven't read the essay. Curtis Yarvin did a call-out article to the New Right, which, if you're a reader of people like Spandrel or Yarvin, you might be thinking, oh, he's just rehashing, right? Because what he's criticizing is the establishment Republicans, the National Review, These people who the well-known problems, they have no new ideas. What else is new? But he actually wasn't. He was criticizing people like Scott Alexander and the American Mind and people who are more on the moderate dissident right kind of deal. The new intellectual class that's breaking ranks both with the conservative movement of old and neo-reaction and more radical approaches. I think you need to handle each of these things separately. Conservatism in the post-war William F. Buckley sense just has to be looked at, in my opinion, at this stage, as just some kind of like world historical human mistake that had very, very little. I mean, it had some interesting ideas. It wasn't wrong about everything. It wasn't wrong about a lot of the social issues, in my opinion. I think that's just definitively shaken out on the statistics. World historic human mistakes and a huge waste of time. If this am I hitting buffering again? I'm going to murder this service. Back. Oh, it's coming. Okay. Wow, that's weird. Oh my god.